Good evening, West Virginia. You know, I think we need to say a great big thank you for this beautiful weather that we have had. What do you think? You know what? April the 9th, 2015, today is a great day to be alive and to have the freedom and the independence to be able to attend this rally and to be sitting here in a public space on the lawn of our beautiful Capitol. Not a lot of there are other folks across our world who aren't able to do that. And so, you know, we should thank those who have given us that privilege. But today is not a great day to be depending on home and community-based supports to be able to maintain those freedoms and to be able to maintain the independence for thousands of West Virginia's most vulnerable citizens who are today, this very day, threatened by the fact that potentially in the very near future, the very program that was designed to enable you and many others across our state, the very program that was designed to help you remain in your homes and in your communities is being threatened by drastic cuts. The proposed cuts outlined in the IDD waiver application will inevitably lead to the erosion of independence, inclusion, and the freedom for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the great state of West Virginia. We already have some of the most difficult eligibility criteria in the country, making it terribly difficult to qualify for services. With approximately 1.8% of our state's population, that's about 33,400 folks or so, with developmental disabilities, the need for home and community-based services far exceeds the number of children and adults who are actually receiving the services they need today. Our state of West Virginia leads the country in the percentage of individuals with disabilities per capita. Yet we have very few programs other than the IDD waiver, and we used to have family support, to support individuals with IDD and their families. Last year, family support funding was cut by 75%. The program was decimated, and that program provided benefits to individuals and families across the state. That, combined with the actions of those who made that decision, combined with the proposed cuts in the upcoming application for IDD and home and community-based services, makes me realize that the focus on the very folks who are the very folks who are sitting out here on our state's capitals, on the lawn of the state capitol, there's a dismal reality of how important the lives are for those who have intellectual and developmental disabilities across our state. So let's talk about what home and community-based services means to you and to my family. You know, we hear talk throughout the state about the IDD waiver and Title XIX waiver, and that it's a lifeline for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But I cannot stress enough how critical it is for you to have a voice and to tell those agencies who are making those decisions, reminding them how that impacts your life. We don't need to be cutting services at this very critical moment. We need to be adding services. If our state threatens to cut services which empower people to live independently in their community and use supports that allow them to choose the life of their own, they are going to be put back into nursing homes or receiving health care services in institutional settings. But you know what? We need to throw this out there. Governments have a prerogative to do what they want and to, well, not do what they want, but to propose what they want. Our government thinks it needs to make changes and cuts because of budgetary issues. They have the right to propose that, but they cannot make those changes until they sit down at a table and talk to you and to families and to service providers and to the very people of West Virginia who have a stake in this system, and that is not happening. Until they have open and honest and objective conversations with the very people who will be impacted the most, we must stand together in a unified manner and demand that there will be no more cuts to home and community-based services. You've heard Kevin say, and you've heard others refer to our favorite motto at the ARC, which is, if you're not at the table, where are you? You are on the... Absolutely. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I want to give you a couple of reasons why it is so critical for you to be at the table. Things that are happening right this very second in regard to the Title XIX Waiver application. It is imperative to provide those who are making decisions that are going to impact your life and who are submitting applications and proposals. It's imperative to provide them with accurate information. And let me tell you why. There are some misconceptions out there and some misinformation that's floating around. We need to let them know that the reason why families get paid in West Virginia for assisting and helping provide services through the waiver program is because there are not enough direct care provider staff and care workers to provide the appropriate level of service. And what many also may not realize is that the waiver model that's here in our state today was developed many years ago, and an educated decision was made for West Virginia to take into the fact how important families are to each other and to include family members in the solution. 67% of waiver recipients live in their family home, which is higher than any other state. Why do you think that is? That is because West Virginia has closed its large institutions. Other surrounding states have other options for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have institutions, large institutions. They have ICF, IID facilities that have more than 16 beds. Other states have more people with IDD in nursing homes and psychiatric facilities than West Virginia. These institutions are far more costly than home and community-based services, not to mention the folks who live within those walls are not as happy, healthy, and as productive as those who live within their community. That being said, many family members would love to have time for themselves. They need a break from being the sole caregiver, if only for a brief time or maybe for a week getaway. But many cannot find respite providers, and many only have family and friends to be able to take care of their loved ones. So I want to fill you in on a couple of facts and some things that the decision makers who are guiding this application, some things that they are being told from the Department of Health and Human Services. They are being provided inaccurate and unrealistic figures from the department in terms of what families are making in revenues off of the waiver program, when in reality, the figures they are providing are based on inflated budgets that are rarely or never accessed by family members. In addition, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Resources reported to our legislators that the average person on waiver costs our state $85,000 a year. That is absolutely not true. That's the average budget that has been inflated over the past 2 years, and most families could never use all of the money that they are given in their budget if they billed every minute of every day. The department wrote the waiver application, included that West Virginia has one of the most generous waiver benefits in the nation and the most generous waiver benefits than any other surrounding state. We have an awesome home and community-based waiver system with very generous supports. And while those statements are correct on paper, waiver benefits in the state of West Virginia are generous, but they are necessary. What they failed to say was that we have some of the most strict guidelines for being able to access waiver, being able to qualify for those services, being able to be afforded those direct care providers to assist people for living in their homes and in their communities. There aren't enough folks to go around as it stands to be able to provide the appropriate level of supports to the 4,634 individuals who are currently receiving waiver services, let alone the 1,025 individuals who are currently on the waiting list. In addition, the strict criteria supports the fact that those who are currently receiving the supports have the most significant needs, and they obviously should be expanded, not cut. So I want to talk briefly, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I want to talk about the impact on individuals and families. These cuts are so drastic that they're going to force families to quit their jobs and to be dependent on government assistance programs. That's also going to cost the state money. But more importantly, we know that with these cuts, some of you, many of you out there, will lose some of your supports during the day. We know that those supports mean you won't get to go out and do the things that allow you to be a valuable citizen in your community across this state. We know that with these cuts, some of you, many of you out there, will lose some of your residential supports, allowing you to live in the homes and in the communities and in the neighborhoods that you choose to live in. What's happening right now is our folks with IDD are being forced into unnecessary potential institutionalization, and we are at risk of returning to the days of warehousing people with disabilities in settings that are built for them, not chosen by them. It is simply unacceptable. It is not acceptable to assume West Virginians with IDD will be okay living in crisis homes or nursing homes or institutional homes where they are put. Losing home and community-based services and supports, if that happens, waiting lists will quickly grow, and it will create a crisis for many, many individuals with IDD living with caregivers. So let's talk just a couple more points about the rally and your role in creating change. It is so important to stand together and sit together in our community. The time has never been more critical to create a chain of resistance to the proposed cuts as it is on April the 9th, 2015. It is amazing to see so many people standing together and to have your voices be heard. And for those of you who attended the People First Conference, the theme was right now. It's time for us to do something right now. If not me and you, then who is going to do something to make sure that our lifelines are not cut? You are the change. And if you don't fight, then who will? So in closing, I want to be very clear when I say it is in no way acceptable to balance West Virginians' budget on the backs of people with disabilities. And when a policymaker hears directly from a constituent who has a disability, it can make the issue real in a way that statistics just can't. And this message must be sent loud and clear. Because the truth at the heart of the matter is, cutting this lifeline from those who need it is sentencing them to a life inside the old sterilized walls of homes in which they do not choose to live. We would urge the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, politicians, and organizations concerned with any and all human rights to join us in condemning these proposed cuts. The strength and resolve of people with disabilities and the grassroots efforts got us this far, and by golly, we will not give up. This has never been about protecting support for existing waiver, only protecting support for existing waiver recipients. However, it certainly is about the fundamental right to live in our homes and in our communities for all people with disabilities. Thank you.